My sister banned me from going on the family trip I paid for, so I canceled her ticket and we went on vacation without her. I'm 29 years old and come from a relatively close-knit family. There are 3 of us siblings: me, my younger brother, 26, and my younger sister, Bonnie, 24. I have a good relationship with my brother, but my relationship with Bonnie has always been a bit complicated. It's not that we don't get along, but she has always been a bit demanding. As the youngest, our parents often favored her when we were kids. While I've tried to let it go, her behavior has tested my patience on many occasions, not just mine, but my brother's as well. However, his patience is thinner than mine, and when they're together, there's usually some conflict. Earlier this year, I received a good bonus at work, and with my parents' anniversary approaching, I thought it would be a great idea to take the family on vacation. We hadn't gone anywhere together in years, and it seemed like a fantastic way to reconnect and celebrate. I planned a week-long trip to Hawaii, covering all the expenses: flights, lodging, and activities. Hawaii was where my parents had their honeymoon, so I thought it would be a perfect way for them to relive those youthful days. When I announced the trip, my parents were thrilled, as expected. I knew my brother would appreciate the gesture too, but I was a bit unsure about Bonnie's reaction. Her mood is unpredictable. To my surprise, both of them were excited, especially Bonnie, who immediately started talking about all the things she wanted to do and the Instagram videos she planned to make. I was glad everyone seemed happy, but that moment of bliss didn't last long. Bonnie insisted on planning the vacation herself. I told her that since I was paying, I wanted to organize everything. She threw a fit, claiming I wasn't good at planning and that I should let her take over. This wasn't a suggestion, but a demand. There were reasons I wanted to handle it myself. First, it was my gift to the family. Second, Bonnie has a tendency to be extravagant when someone else is paying. For instance, she'd book the priciest options without a second thought. I had carefully planned everything within my budget. My parents tried to mediate, suggesting that Bonnie could help if I was too busy. To keep the trip a surprise, I told them the activities would be revealed as we went along. Bonnie didn't like this and kept pressing me for details, saying she needed to shop for the right outfits. Eventually, I gave her the itinerary, hoping it would shut her up. But instead, she called me, furious about certain things she thought needed to be changed for everyone's comfort. Her suggestions were reasonable, so I made a few adjustments. This boosted her ego, and she smugly said, "See? That's why I should have planned this from the start." Reluctantly, I gave her limited access to my bookings, with strict instructions not to make major changes. She promised to stick to the guidelines, but immediately announced in the family group chat that she was now in charge of the trip. At first, the changes she made were harmless, like suggesting matching outfits for the family. But a week before the trip, I discovered she had canceled some of the activities I'd booked and replaced them with ones she preferred. She even declared herself the leader of the trip and said everyone should follow her plan. Furious, I called her, trying to reason with her, but she stood her ground. She said I should let her handle it since she was better at planning. I firmly told her no, and that she had already done enough damage. She accused me of being controlling and hung up. That night, my parents called me. Bonnie had already told them her side of the story, and they wanted to know what was going on. I explained the situation without revealing too much to preserve the surprise. To my shock, they sided with Bonnie, saying it didn't matter who planned the trip as long as we spent time together as a family. Frustrated and unappreciated, I considered canceling the entire trip but decided against it. Instead, I stepped back from the planning and let Bonnie take charge. I figured I'd just go along and enjoy the trip, even if it wasn't the way I'd envisioned it. However, things took a turn for the worse. 2 days ago, we were all set to leave the next day, and I received a notification that my tickets had been successfully canceled. I was in complete shock. I immediately called the airline and found out that they had been canceled from my account. They said they couldn't do anything about it. It was no surprise. It was Bonnie. I called her angrily and she answered as if nothing had happened. I screamed, "How dare you cancel my tickets?" She laughed and replied, "Oh, yes, I did." I lost my composure and shouted, "Would you care to explain this?" She casually responded, "Okay, I hate to say this, but we can't have you on the trip. You're too controlling and your negative attitude will ruin it for everyone. I discussed it with everyone and the family agreed to leave you out. You're not worth ruining our vacation over." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. The trip I had planned and paid for was now happening without me. Somehow Bonnie had convinced everyone that I was the problem, and they had all agreed to go ahead with it. At that moment, something inside me snapped. I wasn't going to let her walk all over me. I logged into my account, canceled her ticket, and rebooked it under my name. Then I changed the password so she wouldn't be able to access it again or make any changes to the itinerary. I sent a message to the family group chat. "Since Bonnie decided I'm not welcome on the trip I paid for, I've canceled her ticket. If any of you want to stay with her, I'll be happy to cancel your tickets as well." The reaction was immediate. My brother called me right away and said he had no idea about Bonnie's moves. I explained the argument I had with her, and he confirmed that she was making things up. He assured me that he never agreed to leave me behind, and was pretty sure that our parents would never forbid me from going on the trip I was paying for. It was a relief to know at least he wasn't on Bonnie's side. While I was talking to him, my parents called, furious that I had canceled Bonnie's ticket. They accused me of being petty and vengeful, but I stood my ground. I explained that I had planned and paid for the trip as a gift for the family, and if they didn't want me there, I'd go on a solo trip. But I wasn't going to give this up and sacrifice myself. They confirmed they hadn't asked Bonnie to cancel my tickets, but they weren't happy that I canceled hers. They insisted that we should all go together on the trip. I told them I wasn't going to let Bonnie dictate the terms of my generosity. Bonnie, of course, was furious. She sent me a flurry of angry messages, calling me all sorts of names. I forwarded the messages to my parents to show them what their daughter was doing. My dad called me and offered to mediate the situation. He said he would include Bonnie in a call where she could apologize, and I would then rebook her ticket so we could have a family vacation together. I wanted to resist this request, but a part of me knew that Bonnie would never apologize. So, I accepted my dad's proposal. He added Bonnie to the call, but she was too angry to realize it was a conference call. Dad told her that she acted wrongly by canceling my tickets and that she should apologize before hearing anything else. She bluntly responded that she wasn't going to apologize because she did the right thing. We could both hear her muttering, "Apologize to that idiot? Not a chance." Dad hung up the call. He had nothing more to say. After that, I called him back and said, "Now do you see how cruel your daughter is? Or do you still want me to take her with us?" He stayed silent for a moment and said he was torn between two children. He acknowledged that I had done the right thing, but admitted he felt sad that the trip wouldn't be the same after this conflict. This wasn't what he had imagined. It was supposed to be a family trip, and no matter how I felt about Bonnie, she was still part of the family. My brother and I might not be affected, but our parents would definitely feel her absence. Update 1. The situation between Bonnie and me got worse after I was excluded from the trip. She turned against me, trying to convince my brother to take her side. She even proposed the idea of sponsoring the trip together so they could leave me out. He laughed at her suggestion and asked if she had enough money to cover 50% of the trip's costs. She admitted that she didn't have the money right now, but promised to pay him back as soon as possible. My brother shook his head in disbelief. Both of us knew she would never follow through. She didn't have a stable job and often skipped work when she wasn't in the mood. When she suggested going to Mexico instead of Hawaii, my brother burst into laughter and rejected her offer to be the free photographer for their vacation. She hung up the phone and resorted to emotionally manipulating our parents to keep her on the trip. Fortunately, my parents stood firm this time, insisting that she apologize if she wanted to join us. They tried to convince her to be the bigger person and forgive Bonnie, urging her to do so, but they had no other choice but to accept that Bonnie wouldn't be joining us. When we boarded the plane, there was tension in the air, and I could see the disappointment in my parents' eyes. Upon arriving in Hawaii, I took charge of the planning and made sure we had a great time. We enjoyed a private luau, snorkeling adventures, and even a helicopter tour of the island. Despite the initial discomfort, we gradually started to relax and enjoy ourselves. My parents began to accept that this was still a family vacation, even without Bonnie. Throughout the week, I received sporadic, angry messages from her, full of accusations. Even my parents started to see that her behavior was unreasonable. We came back from the trip with a ton of fresh memories and incredible experiences. Hawaii had a way of easing the tension. Although my parents were still disappointed that Bonnie wasn't there, they appreciated the effort I had put into making the trip memorable. Bonnie blocked me on social media and was furious with our parents for choosing me over her. She even expressed a desire to cut ties with them, but she couldn't because she was living in their house. She called my brother a freeloader for supporting me and said she never wanted to see me again. It was painful, but I knew I had done what I needed to do. I don't regret standing up for myself and setting boundaries, but I do wish things had turned out differently. Maybe someday Bonnie will realize she was on the wrong side and we can repair our relationship. Until then, I'll hold on to the memories of that amazing trip. Update 2. Here's another update on the saga with my sister. It's been a while since these incidents, but I finally found the time to update here. After returning from the trip, I went back to work and had to put in extra hours to make up for my absence. I didn't talk to my parents about Bonnie right away, but I knew she must have been throwing tantrums against them for enjoying the trip without her, trying to make them feel worse. My brother and I flooded social media with family photos, and it was pretty fun. Almost 3 months later, I visited my parents and noticed that Bonnie's room was empty. I asked about her, and I found out that they had finally asked her to leave. Well, not exactly kicked her out, but they told her to leave. She wasn't taking her life or career seriously, frequently missing work without reason. Since she didn't have any responsibilities like rent or food, she didn't take things seriously. A year ago, my parents demanded she start paying rent to live in their house. At first, she was furious and called them evil and greedy. When Dad threatened to evict her, she agreed to pay rent, but in a year, she only managed to pay for 3 months. Every month, she came up with a new excuse to avoid paying. As expected, after my parents came back from their trip, she exploded. They tried to calm her down and even brought her gifts, but she threw them in their faces. Finally, Dad had enough of her superior attitude and told her to pack her bags and he would drive her to her new place. Her behavior immediately changed. She started sobbing, hugged Mom, and said she had acted that way because she missed them and was hurt because we left her alone. Mom responded that she had brought this upon herself and that they didn't intend to leave her out. Her narcissistic behavior forced them to make this decision. She acted as if she were crying, promising to pay the rent every month. However, my parents had already given her enough time to change, but she remained the same narcissistic person. This time, they didn't give in to her manipulations and kicked her out of the house. Dad found a small apartment for her and even paid 2 months' rent. I didn't like how everything was handed to her on a silver platter, but it was better than letting her live in their house for free. Even though they were still concerned for her well-being, kicking her out was the best way to make her more independent. What they didn't know was that she was tough to deal with. Mom called me last week and gave me the latest update about Bonnie. Dad covered 2 months of rent for her while she moved out. Mom gave her prepared meals and snacks that lasted about a week. After that, Bonnie started stopping by my parents' house, staying until dinner time. Mom had to offer her food, and she even started occasionally staying overnight. At first, they tolerated it, thinking she was homesick, but after some time of this behavior, they decided to confront her. Bonnie admitted she had stopped paying rent and was hiding from the landlord. She hadn't paid anything during the 2 months she lived in the apartment. It was all with Dad's money. When Mom asked her what she had done with her salary, she said she bought work shoes. Mom offered to lend her money to cover the rent, but she refused, insisting on returning home. Mom asked Dad for help, and he stood firm, saying there would be no more assistance. He was tired of her manipulative tactics, and if she asked for help again, they wouldn't open the door for her. I thought Dad's response was a bit harsh, but I understood his frustration. He had done enough for Bonnie. She turned to my brother for help, saying she couldn't ask me because it would feed my ego and make her feel like a failure. My brother refused to get financially involved, even asking me indirectly through him to lend her money. He refused to keep it a secret from me, which made Bonnie furious. She became bitter towards him, calling him the one who kicks me out and my pet who runs after me for free food. I took these stories with caution, but her arrogant behavior had reached its peak. Someone had to face her. I'm glad I was the first to stand up to her and leave her out of the trip. I still remember how my parents reacted, trying to twist the situation to include Bonnie. It's a relief that they finally realized how toxic Bonnie was and how she used her role as their daughter to manipulate them. For now, that's all. Thanks for interacting with my post. If there are any more updates about my sister's situation, I will share them in this thread. Update 3. I'm giving you an update 4 weeks after the last one to tell you I saw Bonnie. It's not that I wanted to, but that's how things are with my sister. I saw her when I got home on a Thursday, exhausted from work. There she was, standing at the door, waiting for me. It was a rainy, cold day, and I don't know how long she had been standing there, but she looked miserable. As soon as I saw her, I didn't know what to say, so I gave her a hesitant, "Hello." She was a little more energetic, so I knew this wasn't going to be good. She tried to hug me and asked, "How have you been, little brother?" I just stood there holding my things in my hands while she hugged me. When I finally managed to pull away from her, I opened the door since I didn't want to keep getting wet, but I didn't think to tell her she wasn't welcome. She practically pushed past me and entered without even waiting for me to go in first. After I took off my coat and work things, I asked her what she wanted. She said it had been a while since we'd seen or talked, so she just wanted to stop by to say hi. I told her to cut the act and tell me why she was really there. That's when she put on that sad face she always used with our parents and said she had nowhere to live. Her landlord had finally evicted her after she'd fallen behind on rent for a few weeks. I knew that was a lie because my mom had told me she hadn't paid rent in months and the landlord had only received money from my dad. I told her no. Then she switched tactics, pressuring me to talk to our parents or our brother to help her, since, according to her, I wasn't being a good brother. She said the least I could do was find it in my heart to help her so she wouldn't end up on the streets. I told her I wasn't going to do any of that. If she wanted to win back our parents' favor, she should work on improving her life. Maybe once they saw she was being responsible, they'd consider forgiving her. She didn't like my answer. She probably expected something else from me. She started calling me all kinds of nasty things, saying I was a bad brother. She claimed that just because I had money and a good job, I thought I was superior to everyone else. She also said the rest of the family only cared about me because I paid for things, like the trip we went on. It's funny because that's the only thing I've ever paid for them in my entire life. Anyway, I told her I'd heard enough. If she'd already warmed up after being in my home for a bit, it was time for her to head back out into the cold night. I knew she had more to say, probably another insult, but I told her it would be best if she left on her own, or I'd be forced to make her leave. You can imagine she didn't take my ultimatum well. When she finally left, I blocked her on everything. Honestly, I hadn't needed to before because she never reached out to me after the trip, but now, I didn't want to take any chances. As for where she's staying or what she's doing now, I have no idea. She hasn't even spoken to our parents. Hopefully, this is the last update I have to give, or maybe the next one will be about her getting her life together. Update 4. Since many people asked me for an update on where my sister has been staying, here's what I know after 10 days. That same night she came to visit me, she went to our brother's house and tried the same thing, but he didn't let her in either, so she ended up leaving. From what I've heard, since my mom has been in touch with her during this time, she's now staying at a friend or co-worker's place. I'm not sure how their arrangement works, but I feel sorry for her friend. I mean, having a freeloader live with you can't be easy. That said, I only updated because people asked, not because I really care. So, I think this will be my final update.